Today's lesson is fun facts about the beautiful game. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're going to talk about the World Cup and we're going to talk about football itself, or soccer, as it is known in the United States. And as you know, World Cup 2022 is going on right now in Qatar, which, of course, is a country in the Middle East. Sometimes people say Qatar. I've heard Qatar before as well. But no matter how you pronounce it, that's where the World Cup is taking place this year, later in the year, because it's so darn hot there.
Right, and it's going to be very exciting because soccer or football, soccer it's called in the United States and football by the rest of the world, is very popular. And it's also known as the beautiful game for many reasons, as we will see. So this World Cup 2022 is a very exciting event. And because of this occasion, we are going to look at some fun facts about this beautiful game.
So let's get to it, everybody. Without any delay, we'll listen to the first paragraph and we'll come back to talk about the beautiful game.
Fun facts about the beautiful game. Football, known to its fans as the beautiful game, is by far the world's most popular sport. Its World Cup, which takes place once every 4 years, is watched by billions. In fact, this year's tournament is expected to be watched by over 5 billion people, which is more than half the world's population. Here are some other interesting football facts to ponder while you watch.
大家好，第一部分我们可以看到片语 by far， 指的是显然点点点的多或是大大的。例如 The country was seeing the worst weather it had seen by far in years. 这个国家当时正面临多年来最恶劣的天气。或者 My current car is by far the most fuel efficient one I have ever owned. 我现在的车显然是我买过的车中最省油的一台。接下来我们看到单字 tournament。这个字是名词，指的是锦标赛，像是 James doesn't expect to win the tournament, but he still thinks it would be fun to compete. James 不期望可以赢得比赛，但他仍然认为参加比赛会很有趣。或是 Candace came in third place at her high school's chess tournament. Candace 在她高中的西洋棋锦标赛中获得第3名。再来我们看到动词 ponder， 它的意思是考虑、默想或是沉思。举例来说 The philosopher pondered the meaning of existence. 哲学家思考存在的意义。又或者说 Jody pondered long and hard on where to go for her honeymoon. Jody 左思右想要去哪里度蜜月。
Football, known to its fans as the beautiful game, is by far the world's most popular sport. Indeed, it is the world's most popular sport. It's viewed by many people, by millions of people around the world, in South America and Africa and Europe. It's less popular in the United States because the U.S. has its own version of football, but in the rest of the world, football or soccer is considered a beautiful game. Not just because it's popular, but also because, as some people say, it's a very elegant game. If you have ever watched a football or soccer game, you'll notice that the players, when they're good, it's like a dance. There's very little contact, as you would see in American football, and the running, the movements, the kicks, they're all very elegant in a certain way.
And, of course, as Helen said, football is not particularly popular in the United States, although it's getting more and more popular all the time with MLS and more teams beginning all the time there. But I think most Americans dislike soccer for the same reason that people in Taiwan dislike soccer, because it's just so darn low scoring. Who wants to go see a game in which the final score is 1-0 or 2-1? We're, of course, used to games having higher scores. There's more excitement that way. But the rest of the world doesn't seem to be bothered by that, and therefore soccer or football is the world's most popular sport. And I should mention, though, that this word football causes a lot of confusion. If you're in the United States and you say football, that's going to refer to American football. In America, you'll have to call that sport soccer if you're talking about kicking a ball around with your foot into a goal. Now, football, known to fans as the beautiful game, is by far the world's most popular sport. So it's the world's most popular sport, but it is by far. Second place is way down the list. Soccer is way on top of the list. It's not even close.
Right. Its World Cup, which takes place once every 4 years, is watched by billions. So indeed, the World Cup tournament takes place once every 4 years. So the last time it was in 2018. And every time it happens, it's watched by billions. Here, billions refers to billions of people. Sometimes you can drop the noun and just use the quantifier millions, billions, hundreds to refer to the noun that is already implied in the sentence.
Right, so the World Cup competition takes place once every 4 years. Most people will be watching at home or in bars on TV screens. And in fact, this year's tournament is expected to be watched by over 5 billion people, which is more than half the world's population. So again, we're referring to the World Cup as a competition or as a tournament. And a tournament is a sports competition that involves lots of teams or lots of athletes who are competing against each other. And then there'll be one winner at the end of the tournament.
Right. So you can also refer to a tennis tournament because when you have a tournament like Wimbledon or the US Open, you have a lot of players competing against one another in the beginning, and then you slowly head to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, until you get to the finals, which is played between the last 2 tennis players who have beat out all of the other players to be able to compete in this last game.
Exactly. And a similar word would be playoffs. You hear that often used to describe sports in North America. The Stanley Cup playoffs, for example, after the regular season finishes and different teams in the NHL, the National Hockey League, compete against each other for the Stanley Cup. But here, of course, this is the World Cup tournament, and 5 billion people are going to watch it all over the world. And here are some other interesting football facts to ponder while you watch. It's a little bit of trivia about the World Cup and about soccer in general. And you could sort of think about these things and think, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Now I know, and now I can tell my friends as well. So yeah, if you ponder something, you just kind of think about something and you make some conclusions about that thing.
That's right. So you can also ponder the meaning of life. You can ponder why we're here. Why do we exist? Those are some questions that people like to ponder, perhaps in their free time.
Okay, so let's find out some interesting facts about the World Cup. Let's go on to the next part and find out why the heck the World Cup competition is taking place so late in the year.
The 2022 FIFA World Cup is the first to start in November and first to be held in the Middle East. Because the host country for this year's Cup, Qatar, experiences intense heat in the summer, the tournament is the first ever not held in May, June, or July.
So, first fact, the 2022 FIFA World Cup is the first to start in November and first to be held in the Middle East. So, up until this year, no World Cup tournament has ever been held in the Middle East. It's been held in most of the other continents, and it's also usually held earlier than November.
Exactly. So, yeah, they're always taking place during the summer. The competition is always taking place in May or June or July. So, yeah, why is it starting in November? And why is it being held in the Middle East? Well, because the host country for this year's Cup, Qatar, experiences intense heat in the summer, the tournament is the first ever not held in May, June, or July. So indeed, this competition is being held later in the year because Qatar is a country in the Middle East and it's very, very hot there. It experiences intense heat during the summer. If something is intense, it's of a high degree. Okay, so of course you could talk about intense weather, like with typhoons and tornadoes and stuff like that. That would be intense weather. Or if you're on the moon or in outer space, you might experience intense radiation, intense cosmic radiation, or intense solar radiation. So, of course, if you are an astronaut, you need to have special protection.
Yep, you can also talk about intense pain. Sometimes when you drop something on your pinky, on your toes, then that can lead to intense pain, or students can also go through intense pressure when they have to study for final exams. So here, Qatar experiences intense heat in the summer. Sometimes the temperatures can go up to the 50s. Therefore, they've decided to hold the FIFA World Cup in November when the temperatures will be lower.
Seems kind of reasonable. Of course, I remember when the World Cup took place in South Africa, they had a problem with the temperature there being too cold because South Africa, of course, is in the southern hemisphere. So if you have the World Cup during the summer, well, in South Africa, it's actually the winter there. So yes, they were complaining about the games being too cold. It's kind of a similar situation. But now, of course, we've got FIFA World Cup taking place in November and finishing this month in December because it's so hot in the Middle East. Okay, moving on now to the next part. Let's talk about the actual name of this particular sport as we touched on in the beginning of our lesson today. Yeah, is it football? Is it soccer? Just what the heck should we call it?
The game has more than one name. Football, or to give its full name, association football, is what the game is called in most of the world. In North America, however, it's known as soccer. The word soccer developed from the soc in association, and the alternate name became a useful way to differentiate the sport from American football, the popular North American sport that involves throwing, carrying, or kicking an oval ball to either end of a field.
第三部分我们看到单字 alternate， 这个字是形容词，意思是替代的、代用的或是供选择的。例如 After the failure of his first attempt, Ricky decided to try an alternate approach. Ricky 第一次尝试失败后，决定试试另一种方法。或是 When the flight was cancelled, we had to find an alternate way to get to our destination. 当时班机被取消，我们必须找替代的方法到达目的地。另外补充这个字的同义字 alternative, A-L-T-E-R-N-A-T-I-V-E, alternative. 举例来说 The engineering team is looking into alternative sources of energy. 那个工程团队正在探究能源的替代来源。或是 The street is blocked. Do you know an alternative way to get to the stadium? 这条街被封了，你知道能到达体育场的替代道路吗？接着我们看到单字 differentiate， 它是动词，指的是辨别、区别或是区分。例如 The forged painting was so good that even experts couldn't differentiate it from the real one. 这幅假画品质相当好，就连专家也无法区别它和真迹。最后我们看到单字 oval， 它是形容词，意思是椭圆形的。举例来说 The shape of this table is oval, almost like that of an egg. 这张桌子是椭圆形的，几乎就跟蛋一样。又或者说 The stone in the middle of the necklace was red and oval. 这条项链中间的宝石是红色且为椭圆形。
So, as we had mentioned before, the game has more than one name. Football, or to give its full name, association football, is what the game is called in most of the world. So in most countries, or in practically every country outside of North America, this game is called football for short, or association football, which is the formal name.
Exactly. Okay, so yes, I believe in the early days of football or soccer in England, there was another sport emerging, which is now called rugby, and they were trying to figure out what to call those different sports. And people who played rugby insisted that they could use their hands, and people playing soccer insisted that you not use your hands, so they kind of went their separate ways. And nowadays we have football and rugby, although they are kind of similar sports. And yes, indeed, the name soccer comes from the word association or association, and you got the SOC in the middle, and that forms the word soccer. And that is what the game is called in parts of the world, but most of the world calls it football.
Yes, and the alternate name became a useful way to differentiate the sport from American football, the popular North American sport that involves throwing, carrying, or kicking an oval ball to either end of a field. So this alternate name, or soccer, became useful because in North America, there is another game called football. So alternate here is another word for alternative, which means different from something that you had mentioned before, or something that can be substituted, used instead of something else. So I can say there are alternate ways to get to school. You can either walk there, or you can take the bus, or you can take the train. So these are all alternatives or alternate choices that you can make.
Right, so they started calling this game soccer to tell it apart, or to differentiate the sport from American football. You may have heard of that before, the Super Bowl, the Dallas Cowboys, the Denver Broncos, those sorts of teams. That's American football. And in that sport, it involves throwing, carrying, or kicking an oval ball to either end of a field. So yes, indeed, you've got a ball that is sort of shaped like an olive, I guess, or an almond. That's in American football. Rugby has a similar ball. The shape is similar. It's a little rounder, and it's bigger than an American football. But the American football, of course, is brown, and it involves throwing, carrying, and kicking it. And here we've got the verb to involve. That just means what is included with this thing, or that is what is included with this activity. And this activity, football, American football, involves throwing the ball, carrying the ball, and kicking the ball. And this ball is oval, which is kind of like a long, round shape, sort of like an egg.
Yes, so as an example sentence for the word involve, I could say, I'm looking for a job that involves greeting customers. So I'm looking for a job that has to do with, or that includes, greeting customers. And as for the word oval, you can say that a table is oval if it has the shape of a flat egg. It's sort of a long, narrow circle. That's what an oval-shaped thing is.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分的第二句提到，每4年举办一次的世界杯有数十亿人观看。那文中它用到 take place 来表达举办。然后在课文第二部分，它又提到2022年世界杯是首次在11月开赛，而且首次在中东举办。这边则是用到 be held 来表达举办。那我们来整理一下相关的用法咯。好，第一个我们可以用 take place 来表达举行发生，像是活动、会议等等的 的举行啊，事件的发生。那用 take place 来指举办举行的时候，这通常是指事先计划或安排好的事。这个片语的主词呢，我们是要用事物哦，像是 The parade will take place at 2 p.m. 游行将于下午2点举办。好，那么第二个用法呢，我们可以用 hold 或者是 host， 这两个动词都可以表达举行、举办。那常见的用法有2种，第一种呢，你就是用人或主办单位来当主词，那么用法就会是人或是主办单位加上 hold 或者是 host， 再加上活动。例如 They're hosting a dinner party next Friday， 他们下周5要举办一场晚宴。好，那第二种用法是，如果我们用事物或是活动来当主词，这时候用法就是活动 be held 或者是 be hosted。举例来说，When and where will their wedding be held？ 他们的婚礼会在何时何地举行呢？好，那第三个用法我们可以用到 occur 这个动词，它是指事件没有规划或者是非预期的发生，这个语义会比 happen 还正式。可是 occur 也可以表达事先安排好的活动它的举行的那种语义，用法则是以事物当主词。例如 The event is scheduled to occur in Seattle， 那个活动安排在西雅图举行。好，那么课文最后一句提到说，美式足球呢需要将一个椭圆形的球投掷啊、传球或是踢向场地的两端。文中是用到动词 involve 去表达包含需要，它也有涉及牵涉的意思。我们来学它的字首字根。好 ，volve 这个字根表示 roll， 就是有转动、滚动的语义。那在 involve 这个字当中，它的字首 in 表示 into。进入，那么 volve 它就有 roll， 我们说转动、滚动。那滚动进入、滚动进来，应该很容易联想到 involve， 它就有卷入的意思咯。所以这个动词可以表达使什么卷入啊、牵连、包含的意思。我们顺便补充2个也带有 volve 这个字根的单字。第一个是 evolve， 它的字首 e 是来自 ex， 表示向外，字根 volve 它有转动、改变的意思。那我们就可以用向外转动、慢慢扩展的那种意象去联想到 evolve， 它有逐步演变、演进或者是发展的意思。第二个补充的是 revolve， 它的字首 re 有返回、再度的意思， volve 是转动，那合在一起 revolve 它就有旋转、转动的意思。我们可以用 revolve around something 去表达围绕着什么旋转。那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Tournament. Robin won another match in the tennis tournament and will play for the championship. Intense. Sean wore a hat to protect his eyes from the intense sunlight. Alternate. After the first method failed, the scientist used an alternate method to cause the reaction. Differentiate. The new car's advanced design differentiates it from older models. Involve. The accident involved 3 cars, a scooter, and a garbage truck. Oval. The diamond was cut in an oval shape that was similar to that of an egg.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed reading along with us. I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.